Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, folks, welcome back. We're looking at solving inequalities. This is our second video on the topic of solving. I have found an earlier one, which I'm looking at the moment, and we're following on from there in a sense, but we're also recapping some of the work to go through the basic ideas. So please bear with me. So, ready? Okay. Our first equation reads 4x minus 3 is greater than 4x minus 3 is greater than 29. That's what means greater than. Let's put that arrow here just to demonstrate how you read the equation from here from left to right. Let's give it the arrow. Now, I've written down some basic rules to help us to understand the topic of solving inequalities. A lot of students, whether they're on Key Stage 3 or whether they're doing the GCSEs, when they see inequalities, they kind of freak out. Oh no, how do I deal with inequalities? So let's read these rules to you. Are you ready? Number 1, treat the inequality sign like you would treat an equal sign. So this is a linear equation. Look at that inequality sign which is here. Okay, are we looking at the inequality sign? Here we go. Look at the inequality and think of it as though it was an equal sign in terms of difficulty level of a question. So inequality being that it doesn't make it more harder. It's not a more complicated question. You just have to deal with it in a certain way. So all I'm saying is deal with inequality sign as though it was an equal sign. Point 2, solve. So we mentioned about treating it as solve now. Point number 2, solve the equations like you solve normal equations with equal signs in them. So for example, opposite minus 3 is add 3, opposite time by 4 is divide by 4. How you would do a normal equation, you do an inequality equation. Now, but there is one exception. What is the exception? Here's the exception. I'll put it in purple. And over here, if while solving you divide by or multiply by a negative number, then you must reverse the direction of the inequality. So that's the only exception. And I will be giving you an example of that in this video, inshallah. Okay, so let's do this first question. Let's get started. Right, so let's have a look at this question here now. Where do we start the question? Whenever we are solving a question, we always start at the letter that we want to make the subject. In this case, it is the letter is x. So we start here. Okay, so x has been, first of all, has been times by 4. What do we call this? We call this time by 4 our first action. And then after being minus by 4 has been after being times by 4 has been minus by 3. We call this the second action. So x is being acted on by 2 things. Time by 4 firstly, and then minus 3 secondly. Now when we solve, which one shall I move first? Minus 3. Always move the last action first. When we solve by moving the actions in reverse order. Last action goes first. Treat this like an inequality, so like an equal sign, it's inequality. So opposite of minus 3 is plus 3. Copy down the 4x. Copy down the inequality. At the moment, nothing's happening in inequality. We just left it exactly where it is. No confusion, no extra hard. 29 plus 3. What's 29 plus 3? That'll give us 32. Now, what else do we need to move? We need to move the time by 4. That's left over. So grab that, throw that over the inequality sign like you would normally throw it over an equal sign, same way. Opposite time by 4 is divide by 4. Copy down the x again under the x. I like to keep my working out nice and clear and easy to follow. Copy down the inequality. So I haven't changed anything. Everything looks exactly where it is, where it was. Now we got 32 divided by 4. What is 32 divided by 4? 8. Okay. And that is the answer. What is the answer? So when we read the answer, we say x is greater than 8. So that is our solution for that particular inequality. If, for example, they had as an extension question, they said to you, put this on the line, that shouldn't really be a problem. What we do, we draw ourselves a line at the bottom, say for example. We put on there a couple of numbers. So you could, for example, here 0, 8. Right, it says x is greater than 8. So this is how I would represent it. So I would draw a big circle here, and it's going to be an empty circle, and I've got a little bit excited and I've made my circle empty circle to indicate 8 is not part of our solution. Then we need us have a nice fat line going all the way to infinity. Lovely. And that is how we would do that as an extra thing. That's just in case they ask you. Are we happy with our first question? One question I would like to ask you. Is that any really different than a normal equation? Okay, we start at the x, we identify the actions, we solve by moving the actions in reverse order, we've done all that. The only thing we had different was the inequality sign here. Okay, that's the only thing we had different. This and that's just stayed the same. Nothing really happened to it. And we've even represented it on the line. Are we happy with that first example? What I'm going to do is pause the video here now. I'm going to delete that question and put a new question on there which has negative numbers in it, which will bring in the exception. Yeah? Happy with that one? Good. Okay, quick pause. Okay, folks, let's get back to record. Now, we have the question. The question is traditionally, if you look here on the top of the screen here, traditionally can be written like this. Can you see the arrow? Minus 8x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 48. But what I want to do in this question here, I want to just change it around to the other side because students are used to moving from the right to the left. Now, in this particular question, we're moving, from the left to the right. Traditionally, we have everything blah, blah, blah equals something. Now we can have something equals blah, blah, blah. So we can just change the direction here. So rather than solving to the right, we'll be solving to the left. So just to show you there's no extra difficulty, it's just a matter of perception, how we look at it. So that's the traditional way of setting out the question. This is it setting out back to front, because in the exam they can set it out any way they like. Right, let's have a look at this question. So where do we start this question? We want to solve for x. We start at the x. What has been done to the x? Okay, so can you read to me please? X has been gone. Lovely. Time by minus 8. We call this our first action. And then what's been done? Added by 8. That's called our second action. Now, when we solve any equation, we always move the last action first, which in this case is the second action. So, second action, grab it by the scruff of the neck, plus 8. Take it over the inequality sign. Treat the inequality sign as though it was an equal sign for the moment, for the purpose of solving it. It's still there as it is. Opposite of add 8 is minus 8. What is 48 minus 8? 40, well done. Inequality sign, well, let's make it back into, let's just give it some highlight a bit. There we go. Inequality sign, I'm just copying straight back in. We say, okay, and then we have here minus 8x. So the equation originally read minus 8x plus 8 is greater than or equal to 48. So that's where we are now. Okay, what do we do next? Opposite of, read that for me please. Opposite of what's up there? Okay, opposite times by minus 8. Now, this is where a lot of students make mistakes. Opposite timesing by minus 8. If you undo a multiply by minus 8, opposite of multiplying by minus 8 is dividing by minus 8. The minus doesn't get reversed. Why? Because the operation is here. This is actually what we're doing. Opposite of multiply is a divide. The minus 8 stays the same. That does not also change. because we are doing this, and opposite doing this is that. Opposite times the divided. That's a common mistake in exams. Students reverse both. Do not reverse both. Do not. So grab the -8 by the scruff of the neck. So come over here. Let's throw you over the inequality sign. You were a time by -8. Now you're going to become a divide by -8. The minus part doesn't change. Just the multiply becomes divide. Now, alarm bells should start ringing, and we should start looking at the what? At the exception. Here's the exception. Okay, we're looking at the exception. The exception says if while solving you divide by or multiply by a negative number, then you must reverse the direction. Now, what are we doing over here? Everybody look over here. We are dividing by a negative number. So the exception kicks in here. What does it do? What happens? What happens to our inequality sign? Our inequality sign that was facing towards the left will now be facing towards the, we just turn it around. So, what is 40 divided by -8? That will give us -5. Copy down the x. And we have, alhamdulillah, we have finished that question. Nice big underline. Okay, so at this point here, the exception kicked in, and we had to turn this inequality from facing towards the left to facing towards the, everything else stayed exactly what it was, and we treat the question as though it was a normal equation with an equal sign. Are we happy with that question? Now, just as a quick little bonus thing, if we had to now display, okay, let's come off on the brush here, then go back to this. If we had to display this on a line, back to the brush, back to black, x, okay, we have here 0, 5. What's that? Now, with the inequalities, that inequality reads, when you read this inequality, let me put a greenness. We read from here, from the x. Which way do we read? That way. X is less than or equal to -5. That's what it reads. Okay, that green arrow there indicates the direction of reading. I'll get rid of it now so you don't get confused. So it's going to be less than -5 and equal to. So we do a circle on the 5, -5, and we make it solid. Because -5 is part of our answer. Now, which direction is less than -5? Left or right? It's going to be that way. And we do a nice big chunky line, the nice big chunky arrow which takes it up to infinity. And that would be like an extension part of the question, also expressing on the line, and we are done. So anything -5, -6, -7, -8, all our answers up to -infinity. And that is the end of our video. Sorry folks, it's gone a bit long, it's about 13-14 minutes now. Inshallah, hopefully this will help you understand the basic inequalities. I'll be making another video in a short while looking at double-sided inequalities questions. But so don't go far, stay near. See you in a bit.